Hello and welcome to Grounds Patrol, the Newgrounds community podcast. I am Will Comer, I am your host, and it's been a very, very interesting couple of days on Newgrounds recently. We had a news post maybe a week or so ago, right after April Fool's Day, where Tom, the post is called Ongoing Site Plans. Tom talked about a couple of ideas he and one of the head programmers, PsychoGoldfish, had about the near, far future of Newgrounds. One of the things he talked about was actually the removal of a feature called blaming and protecting. And if you're not familiar, blaming is where you get to look at under judgment pieces of content that are not yet part of the site proper and decide on your own if it needs to be part of the website or not. If it's bad, you can blame it and just send it packing before anybody else gets to look at it. It is a very core, iconic Newgrounds feature that's been around since the good old days and beyond. And him talking about removing it undoubtedly got a lot of backlash from the community. Now, the thread got to be about 6 pages long, a lot of discussion on both sides. An interesting part was when PsychoGoldfish himself piped in and gave his own take on things. And I really appreciated his opinion on it, and I don't really think it got that represented in the thread. So, having the podcast, as I do, I got to sit down and talk to PsychoGoldfish myself, pick his brain about the thread, and about a whole bunch of other stuff. So enjoy.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been through it before, where we make a suggested change and there's a huge wave of backlash. It's
Exactly.
This time around, we're just looking at, we want to make the site so when anybody finds it, they discover it for the first time. We want to make sure it's as usable as possible. I mean, that's why we've been working so hard to make it mobile friendly, to clean up forms, get the rich text editors and things like that in there. And, every site that's come out in the last 10 years or so, if it's got user generated content, whatnot, they have a voting system,
Right.
Nothing fancy there. We're the only one that's ever had a blam system.
Yeah. A negative feedback, we can physically take your content off of our website system.
Yeah. And I mean, it was amazing at the time because, you go back to, 2001 and 2002, those eras there, we were definitely, filled with edgy people. And I was one of them. I was right there with them. I mean, I would have been with the pitchforks and the torches if somebody said they were getting rid of the blam system back then. No problem. I would have been leading the charge. But,
nice.
Nowadays, we've already changed so much. We used to have it where you could vote on a submission as many times as you wanted, and every vote counted towards its score. So if something was under judgment, you and all your buddies could get together, and at midnight, before midnight, you could vote 0.
Yeah.
Come back 5 minutes later, vote 0 again. You could have a real impact on deleting things from the site, and a lot of people use that more to just. A lot of it, they would attack things they didn't like necessarily. Not that the content was poor, but they would use it to attack certain artists they didn't like. It wasn't as protective as it was meant to be at times. But it kind of went with the vibe of the site back then. We were who we were. We were this big punk rock movement, and some people would come in and we didn't feel like they belonged to that punk rock movement. And, we made them feel unwelcome. We did a pretty good job of that.
God, absolutely. That was the whole mentality of the internet back then, was just kind of the new playground of, everybody gets to be a punk and form small little alliances and groups and hate on one another.
Yeah. I mean, it's so surprising that most of the internet is still awful today, but
can you believe it?
I know, right? I mean, but yeah, nowadays, we've seen so much growth in our community. Like a lot of those old timers have gone off, and like me personally, I got way old. I'm 41 years old now. I'm not a punk ass kid who's got a chip on his shoulder anymore. My freaking oldest son. He's in college right now, and he's the age where he's getting into Newgrounds and stuff. I mean, he's been around Newgrounds, but
sure,
it's at the point now where it's a benefit to him. He's in school for game design, and
nice.
He can use this as a portfolio piece and take advantage of, the ins he has, but we won't talk about that.
No. First of all, great for him. That's really, really cool that he can do that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, with Newgrounds, I've seen so many changes in our culture, and I was resistant to a lot of them and until, recently. But like the biggest change we had, which I mentioned in that thread, was when the art portal came around.
Yes.
You saw the members of the art portal do things that no other portal did. Like we had little cliques, in the game side where you'd have, a handful of game developers who really wanted to work together, and they'd prop each other up, challenge each other. But again, we would also kind of push out anybody we felt threatened our little clique. And that, I don't condone that today, but back then it's the way it was, The animators, they were a little better than us. They were a little more accepting of each other, but they still had their little clique. There was, you could probably count on both hands the number of really, truly standout names back then.
Right.
And, there's still a bit of a barrier. The audio portal, that actually took a step backwards. I mean, the audio community had guys on there that were just so vicious to one another, and people didn't want to be involved in that community a lot. There were some guys who would run contests and things like that, and really they tried to open that up, but you always had the couple of rotten apples in there, and they just would drag the whole thing down. And that was the time, is kind of what we were, so we didn't really crack down on that much, which in hindsight, maybe we should have done a better job of that. But
that was my old stomping ground.
Yeah.
Back when I was like a Newgrounds kid, I was the audio portal. I was all over it. I was in the IRC chats and getting in feuds at the other IRC chats, and you know.
So you know what it was like.
Absolutely. That was my bread and butter back in the Newgrounds.
Yeah. And then we built the art portal. And so we came up with this whole scout system because we've experienced what all these other portals communities kind of ended up like. We're like, well, maybe if we just don't let anybody in who's not approved by other artists, it'll kind of work itself out. And we spent so much time bracing for the worst case scenario where like we were going to get some guy that had like 30 friends and they were just going to load the site with kiddie porn or something like that. Like we were ready for that.
Right. And
that never happened. So what did happen is the scout system took a lot of, I don't know what to call it. Anybody could submit art to the site, but they didn't get listed in a portal. So it took a lot off our shoulders of having to, really police things. And we kind of let that portal grow organically. We didn't have anybody from the staff side really pushing hard for what kind of content was the best there. We have the moderators. They kind of took over doing the featured art on the front page, things like that. But the community itself, they took all their artwork and all the positive energy, and they took it to other platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Like they would share their art from Newgrounds, and they'd have all these other artists that are on Newgrounds following them, and they're like, "Oh, you're so good. I love you. You're great." And it was just like a big circle of love that you didn't see in any other portal.
Right.
And that's when my view of what the Newgrounds community could be, like, really, it was like, bam, I was like, sudden 360 in my head. It was like, we could do this on every portal someday. And, in that, around that area, you saw the quality and the whole site was going up as well. The animators, we were getting so many new animators, they were getting better. We didn't have like the IRC chat and stuff around anymore, which was a big part of where people were kind of being gatekeepers and things like that. That kind of went away.
Yeah.
When that went away, that kind of helped a little bit. People came in. A lot of these crotchety old people left. It is what it is. But we can go farther. We can keep this community more open. And so, talking about the blam system, the idea of just blaming work that's not good enough, just destroying it, that's not motivational to me.
Right. It's not necessarily a neutral content, under judgment system as much as the word blam, look at it. It's very blam, negative. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like you're hitting it with a hammer and saying, fuck you, get out of my website.
Exactly. Yeah. And I get like a lot of old school guys, it's a statistic where, you would get rid of the garbage or you would save the quality stuff and you get points for that. And it affected your user level and your blam save score and all that. And, that's cool. I understand why people are worried that might go away. And, I don't know if we'll keep that exact stat. We might rename it. We might replace it with something else, but there's always going to be something because the whole goal is we want even just somebody who comes on the site to vote to feel like they're a part of the community, that everything they do makes Newgrounds grow.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of hard to rip off the blam Band-Aid without people immediately thinking that that's going to go away. Other people will be like, well, if we can't blam, the portal's going to get filled with terrible content. Well, if you've been like honest with yourself and paying attention to the portal in the last couple of years, looking at the under judgment list, there's really not nearly as much stuff that needs to be straight out deleted as there used to be. And, we can use kind of like what the scout system was. So if you're not scouted on the art portal, if you're not familiar with this, I know you are, but the listeners aren't.
Of course.
Some people may not be. If you're not scouted, you can submit anything. It will appear on your user page. You can show people. It appears in a list. People who are looking for artists that they want to promote, they can find you and they can scout you. And that once you're scouted, you can have your work listed in the art portal. So when you look at the art portal that way, these new users that are just coming in and they're putting in like the lowest quality stuff, they're not showing up in the portal anyway. Nobody's scouting them. So you don't have to worry about that happening. Let's say somebody, like if we did this, we would definitely grandfather in existing artists. They'd get automatically scouted. They wouldn't have to start from nothing.
Right.
So let's say one of these guys happened to be from a spam group at one time or whatever and decided they were going to put something really crappy in there. Well, everybody can just vote low. It's going to end up at the bottom of the pile. You're never going to see it. So blaming really doesn't do much. I mean, I heard somebody say, well, it's going to make your hosting costs go up. And it's like, well, it's negligible.
It's 2019, guys. Yeah, we're not dealing with the same hosting problems we were in 2005.
Exactly. I mean, they're not wrong. Yeah, we have to pay for the space we use. But, if it's really that bad, we'll delete it ourselves,
Of course.
And we freed up so much space when we got rid of all the stuff with copyright material. So we got all that extra room now.
Yeah, exactly. Now you can just shove other stuff in there instead. You guys, one of the things you said in that thread, and I'm going to use that phrase a lot, one of the things you said, but it's talking about how, like, when you're an established artist and you have people watching your content and it being made, releasing something bad and getting a ton of bad votes on it and getting people telling you that they were upset with you hurts way more than just getting something deleted.
Oh, yeah. Unless you're intentionally trolling people, and then you're probably sitting behind your computer laughing. But,
yeah,
like I said, it's going to get pushed to the bottom. You're going to have your laugh. I mean, it's fine. You can have fun like that every now and then. That's right. What Newgrounds is all about.
I released a game a couple of weeks ago that I was excited about, and it was fun. But I was sort of like seeing if I could make a game in a certain amount of time and release it. So it wasn't my biggest, grandest content release to date. You know what I mean? So. Right. I put it up on Newgrounds. I put it on a project system. I had all the details set in place, to the point where all I had to do was press publish and it would be done. You know how this goes. So the next day,
I hear you.
The next day comes and I'm busy. I'm on the road. I'm like on the train all day in LA, and I press publish on my phone and I just kind of go, okay, well, I guess I'll tune in tonight and see how it goes. I tuned in that night, and I don't know how I'd done it, but come to find out, my game was actually nothing but a blank black page for mostly everybody. Yep. So instead of the blam system, I, being an established artist, whatever, got 1-star reviews on my thing. I got people PMing me and telling me, hey, by the way, and the PMs were kind of half, hey, by the way, just so you know this is happening, and half, how dare you? I followed you. And there were comments on my news posts, and there were comments on my stuff on Twitter. And I guess I'll say that if in another universe I had done that and it had gotten blammed and it had just not existed, would have been a little bit less stress for me.
Yeah, there you go. That's the thing. You got to be careful what you do once you got a fan base, because they'll let you know when you screw up.
Yeah. I mean, free content or not, even if people aren't paying anything for what you're doing, you still have an obligation to them to release good and consistent things on the basis of what you've promised people.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. That's why I don't make anything anymore.
There you go. I like what one person said. I don't know how it started, but there was like a middle ground we were talking about on the thread where people, once they kind of got approved or discovered or scouted or whatever you want to call it, entered kind of a state that their user name was in where they didn't have to face the blams or the protects. But if they weren't discovered yet, then they would have to be blamed or not.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I don't know. We're still talking about what to do. Honestly, we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks with the community. And
Right.
Tom makes these posts all the time. If you go back in his history, there's like so many of these he's done, and we haven't done any of it because the community's either so against it, or when we really thought about it, it's like, how the fuck are we going to do this?
Right.
So, but in this case, I think there's definitely a little more seriousness to it, just because we do want to make it, a little more accessible, and that's our big goal right now, is making Newgrounds more accessible, be it to a new audience or to new technology. That's kind of where all our time's going, and this is just
Yes.
another one of those things.
I am so on board with that. You have no idea. Accessibility. I mean, I made this podcast so that Newgrounds could grow, and hopefully when it gets part of a larger audience, this is a kind of medium that people understand in a larger audience.
Yeah.
And it's always been about, what is Newgrounds going to look like when it rises back into the front of everybody's page? You know what I mean? And in that case,
man, yeah.
accessibility, I feel like, is one of the biggest issues. Can I tell you something? Like, as much as I love Newgrounds and have loved Newgrounds for my entire life, right?
Right.
I've never been able to show my parents a single thing I've ever put on that website.
No.
And I'm not just saying that because, at a certain point it sat next to like hentai boobs game or whatever because that's true too. But it's because if you look at a piece of content on Newgrounds, a piece of art or audio or music, any game or animation, you're seeing on a page the art itself, and then under that, the Blam Protect 0 through 5 system, and there's user names and numbers, and there's comments and reviews, and there's the side images of Newgrounds that are kind of busy, and then there's the big header. And if you want to enjoy things on Newgrounds, you have to understand Newgrounds.
Yeah, you have to know exactly where the content is, or else you're just seeing so much. And that's one of the things when we did the last design. We changed our slogan to "Everything by Everyone," and we definitely got the everything part.
Yes.
As one of our goals. So the current design that we're working on, it's actually not a final design. We wanted to do something that basically resembled the previous design, just so we could transition one section at a time. Last time when we did the design, it took, like 2+ years. And we were sitting on all this code, and 2 years we worked on it, and the site that the end user used didn't change at all.
Right.
And so we were just working on this massive design for 2 years, sitting on a development server nobody really got to see. And then we launched it all at once. And of course, anytime you deploy anything, you got all the problems. We had the whole site launched at once with all the problems.
I remember what a big deal this was back then too.
Yeah. And so when I was put in charge of this new design, I was like, we are not fucking doing that ever again. Hell no. So we opted to kind of stick with the visual style of the last design, simplify it, and just deploy it bit by bit. Now, once we get the majority of the site done, we'll be able to basically, change all those excess borders and make it even more visually pleasing and things like that. We've already done a few things like that. Like we stripped out the background, so the background image shows through everywhere now.
Yes.
That was kind of cool. We've got rid of a little bit more of the chrome around every pod we have, so more stuff fits on the screen. We've definitely limited the amount of ads we have. And I'm just going to go ahead and plug our supporter system right now, because we definitely need the support of our Newgrounds audience.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, the more we get, the less ads and things like that we have to do. We were, basically running 100% on ad revenue, and that was our main source of income. We don't sell anything. We don't have contracts with anybody. Even the ads we have, they really don't pay a lot because we're blacklisted by all the major agencies. We've been approached, that one of our ad agencies we do use basically told us, if you guys can get rid of all your adult content and censor this and censor that, there's a chance we can get you unblacklisted by Google and DoubleClick and all that. And we thought about it, but we're like, that's not what Newgrounds is. We don't want to censor everybody. And so we're here for the community. We don't want to censor you. We have to do some ugly stuff now and then to make ends meet, but when the community steps up and they get these supporter upgrades, it makes a huge difference. And, in my dream world, we would not only have enough supporters to cover our costs, we'd have enough supporters to get a little more hands on deck, because we're running on a skeleton crew right now, man. it's me and little Jim doing all the programming on the site. Tom does a lot of the concepts. Brendan, that dude is amazing. He's handling all our servers. He's migrated us from this whole data system we were on in an actual data center, physical hardware, all that. He migrated us where we got a lot of virtualization. He shaved off so much expense for us without degrading the site. Actually, he got the site running better. Little Jim, he's amazing. He keeps everything that breaks fixed.
You guys do so much. You really do so much.
And there's a lot on our shoulder, and it's amazing. Bit of rut. I mentioned this to you in a review, I think, the last podcast you did. I've been in a bit of rut, honestly. I've just been working on the site so much. I don't really find I have the time to engage with the community like I used to. And if I'm being honest, I'm kind of a crusty old man now, so I kind of don't want to engage with everybody like I used to. There's such a generational gap now. I just don't get you whippersnappers anymore.
Yeah, as much as the maker of a community podcast, I want to get with the vibe of everybody on Newgrounds. I have to say the same thing. I'm not 41, but I'm in my mid 20s, and I feel like
there's a little disconnect. Yeah,
a little disconnect. But even I can look on the front page and say that there's a lot that I'm not really interested in, and there's a lot of works and the Fortnite. I'm rambling, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, exactly. I don't get the whole Fortnite thing, man. I'm not old.
Yeah, I know.
But and then I was listening to your podcast the other week, and you interviewed Twasnix, or however the hell you say your name.
Twanix.
I hope I said it right. Twanix. Yeah.
I hope I said it right.
We're gonna get some PMs in a minute here if we didn't say it right. But just the way you two were talking about the site. For me, that meant so much, because you were talking about the improvements that I personally had a hand in making.
Yes.
And to hear that acknowledged, and the way you guys acknowledged it, you have no idea how much of a little lift up that was. It was so great. Like, I thank you guys so much for that.
Of course.
And I see a lot more of that in the news posts when we release stuff. Like, it's definitely just another way the community can help Newgrounds, is just, let us know when we're doing a good job. When we're doing a bad job, let us know too. But don't just tear us down all the time. Come on, guys.
I don't think you always need to tell that to people. I think they have a very fine grasp on telling you when things are going wrong.
Oh yeah. But after years of just like listening to negativity about everything and getting this positive vibe, and that's like the whole we were talking about earlier about the community shifting. It's even just the users in the forums nowadays are so much more positive than they used to be. And I'm loving the way the site's going. So, keep up that positive reinforcement. We hear you, and we really appreciate that positive feedback. And, we take the negative feedback and the constructive feedback, especially. Like, we get a lot of people will be like, well, I didn't like this, but maybe you could do this. And I love hearing that, because it's not just a mindless critique. It's, I never thought about that. That's a good idea. We may do that. So, you guys getting involved and just letting us know, what you like and what you think we could change. That does help us. We love that. So, it's all about community, and we really love it when you give us money. So let's just keep doing that.
Well, I'll make sure we plug the supportive thing more, because that's very important. And
yeah, definitely.
I'm glad to hear you appreciate that. I fully intended that to be the case. I wanted to let you guys know that there's people out here who really appreciate what you're doing, and who have a very, very vested interest in Newgrounds. I wouldn't say returning to greatness, because that sounds a little Make America Great Again-y, but you know what I mean.
Build the wall! Build the
wall! No, but Newgrounds has a tremendous opportunity right now to be a community that people need.
Yeah, definitely.
And in the time when YouTube and Tumblr are facing their own demons, I think Newgrounds has a system that deserves to be tried by the greater part of the internet.
Yeah, and that's the dream is basically, if we get everybody on board, we don't honestly need the traffic that YouTube gets. We don't need what Tumblr gets. We just need, several thousand people who believe in what we're doing, believe in what they're doing, as the artistic community, and just kind of getting on board. The more people that produce good content, bring in more fans. The more fans we get, the more likely we already get supporters. The more supporters we get, the more revenue we can get into the whole system. And the thing with Newgrounds is, when we're making money, which it's happened here and there, we don't, just go, "Ooh, money party," and throw it up in the air. No, that goes right back into the community. That money becomes prizes. That becomes revenue sharing, sponsorships, things like that. Like, I joke about this, but I honestly think Tom needs to register Newgrounds as a nonprofit organization, because we don't make any profit right now. And if we did, it would all go directly back into the community. So, I mean, we should petition that. I think we should get on that. Tom, make Newgrounds a nonprofit.
If you're listening, you are listening. Make it nonprofit. I agree with that too. Make it nonprofit.
Think of the tax money we'd save, and that could go back into the community.
Exactly. I mean, all the things you guys make with the money happen, even if it was only less ads. Less ads means more of the website that can be taken up with accessible content that makes sense. And that goes towards the Newgrounds that everybody can understand.
Oh, absolutely. Even like our design abilities, like this design we have now, we had to build it the way we built it because we still rely on so much ad money that we have to have those god-awful, ugly side banners in there. And, they don't fit in a full-width layout. So, a lot of people ask me about that. Like, why did you still do that damn column? Like, everybody else is doing full width. And I was like, well, I got to work in my limitations. And, the more people we get involved, the less limitations we have. So there's that. It's very important that we get the community behind us. And the more they're behind us, the more we can do. It's a snowball effect. And I think we're starting to see more and more of that because, like, we really have cut down on the amount of ads we have. Our mobile experiences, it's pretty clean,
Yes.
And we just want to continue that. So
it's actually funny that you mentioned the full width layout, because I do think that's one of the big things that people talk about is making Newgrounds visually different from other websites. It is. So for what we're talking about, I'm sure you can explain it better than me, right? But it's a responsive website layout where the width of it changes depending on the width of your screen.
Yeah.
And it takes up the entirety of the screen. Like if you think of YouTube and Reddit and Facebook, they expand to fit the exact square rectangle your computer is.
Right.
Whereas Newgrounds right now is kind of on rails. It's there in the center. And if your screen is larger, then there's just more space on the sides.
Yeah, exactly. And we could have done so much more if we didn't need to reserve those sides and have them locked into a certain space, And it's just one of those things that people don't really think about is when you rely on banner ads so much. And the really clean sites that everybody loves, they don't rely on that because they're either brand new and they're riding high on fresh venture capital where they don't have to make a profit. They just got to be really cool and then somebody will buy them. Or somebody's already bought them and that somebody is Google and, they got their own way of working money into that. But we're still independent. We're still kind of locked into these archaic ways of staying afloat. So in a lot of ways, we're always going to be a little more archaic than, the Flavor of the Week site or the big venture capital site. But, we still make it look cool. Come on.
You do make it look cool. I always appreciate the art. Do you think a full width layout would be in the future for Newgrounds?
If we can ever get off of the advertising, I think we could probably go that route some point. Yeah. We definitely want to keep working in the community art into the layout somehow, though. So I'm not sure if we'd always keep a little bit of room for, a skin or maybe just like a horizontal skin. But I think we can definitely have it more responsive. Like if you look at the site now, it doesn't really need to go any wider than it does to work great, but we could make it so that it collapses when you shrink your browser or whatever. We could do stuff like that. I mean, there's always room to talk about things like that. But right now, our goal is just to kind of work with what we can and in the constraints that we're stuck with and get the get at least as long as it's accessible and mostly friendly, we're happy, but we could be happier.
I mean, people were talking on that thread about about Newgrounds, should Newgrounds be more like other websites or should Newgrounds not be more like other websites?
Yeah.
And the full width layout is in a big way putting it more like the other websites, which I've heard people say isn't great, but.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of websites, I mean, the reason that there's so many websites that do it is it works. It works well. It's cool. You can fit more content in. The things that other websites do that work, there's nothing wrong with that. It works. And, there's things that we do that other websites do that maybe we do better that we probably wouldn't change. But I mean, we're not going to look at a new website and just because it's new and it's fancy, we're never going to do that.
Right.
We've already adopted a lot of stuff that other websites have done. And, It's only fair considering so many websites, just ripped on what we did. So,
Guys, I tell that to everybody. Newgrounds has been doing the user submission far before YouTube
oh
or
yeah,
anything else.
yeah. It's a cycle of innovation. You innovate, somebody takes what you did, and they innovate on it further, and you take what they did and bring it back to your product. It's just the way it is.
Assuming Newgrounds keeps all or some of the, not calling it the blame or protect system, but the systems in place with judgment and voting, do you think there will be a push in the future to explain it in a simpler way to users who come to Newgrounds?
That's a tough call. That's the thing is explaining. You can figure out ways to explain something easier, or you can just figure out a way to make the system easier to comprehend. And I think that's more where we're leaning towards.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to read a bunch of, like, we have explanations of how everything works, and you probably only like 2% of the users actually read that shit, But
right.
if we can make it more visually, like when you first look at it and you get that instant feedback as to what it is, sometimes that helps. But a lot of people are so familiar with the systems that like YouTube uses and things like that, merging them into a new system, it's hard. It is. And I think if we can simplify that a lot more, and that's where we're talking about getting rid of the BLAM system comes from. When you submit your work, that's probably the point to let the artists know what the system is. And they'll probably read that, because when you submit something, you usually want to see what the server sent back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But the users, when they vote, they got to know what they're doing, and they got to know where to look if they want to find new talent that's not included in the portal yet. So that's kind of the challenge if we switch systems. Like if a new user comes in and we're using the Scout system, and it's worked out right in the art portal, I guess, but they may not know that, hey, if I go here and I find this really cool movie, I could actually, say, hey, this should be in the portal, and it'll pop it up on a list where, the people that can scout will find them and stuff like that. So we have so many things that we've got to talk about how to simplify and how to present to the user to make it, more accessible. And again, that's that goal of making everything more accessible. So
I know there's got to be a solution out there that retains the core functionality of Newgrounds and what makes it different, but it's still simple enough for people outside of it to use, out like in the greater. I keep calling Newgrounds versus the greater part of the internet.
Yeah.
And with the way people can, Newgrounds is amazing for uploading, and people on Newgrounds will see it, but sometimes the way Newgrounds is not accessible can make it hard for Newgrounds and Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, Tumblr, the rest of it to get along. And if an artist, I guess, is used to performing more on those other websites, going to Newgrounds can be a little bit less like going to a different website and more like going to a different internet. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. One of the things that we don't really talk about it in this term, but it's kind of the way I look at it. Newgrounds, all the systems, when you put them together, everything you do kind of creates some statistic for you. You level up in certain ways. So I always look at all these systems as it's one big game. And when you look at it from the eye of a game design perspective, that's kind of where I see changing these systems around. So when you do something, you get, like in a game, when you do something good, you get the bling, 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 or the stars, or, some sort of feedback. And so I want to come up with ways to, implement game design in our systems where you realize when you do something, you're getting stats and you're leveling up. And then you want to figure out, how can I level up more? And you check out the community, you go, oh, this guy's got this whistle level, or what the hell is that? And they go into all that. And basically I want people to be able to discover all these systems, kind of like, how you learn how to play a game. And I think that might be where we end up going with it.
And the good thing about game design is that it's inherently a teachable language. People understand more of it just by doing it.
Right, exactly. And then you don't have to fall into the trap of, I have to meet the conventions that YouTube does or that Twitter does, because people know video games. So if I use video game conventions, they'll learn that way. And that way I don't have to mirror what everybody else does. I've got a system that people already know how to pick up on. So that's kind of where my mindset is with it.
Yeah. And Newgrounds is already gamified a little bit in terms of having the points and the scores and the levels and the different art you can have depending on which level you are. I guess it would just be a matter of streamlining it.
Yeah, and getting that instant feedback. Like, that's one of the cool things with the BLAM system back in the day. You would blam something and you'd get a little animation. It's like, oh, that movie was blammed, or you get the instant art. And, I'd like to get more feedback like that where, when you vote something, like right now, even the silly little things right now, when you click on the star to vote, you get the little graphic of your experience going up. That's pretty cool. And I think we do more just little things like that where you get that little visual feedback. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, it doesn't have to be like a 30-second movie by any means, but when you do something, you get that instant feedback and poof, you're thinking like you're playing a game. That's all we got to do.
You were talking about earlier, and you and Tom both, teaching the same system to people, but instead of negativity, through positivity. Instead of negatively affecting somebody else, you're positively affecting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And everything I do builds me up. That's the type of thing. And I probably shouldn't be mentioning this because it's a idea Tom's had, and it's not really public, but I think, that people will kind of get a kick out of the idea. It's he wants to do like a token system where users, I don't know how they would earn them yet. It's still like so infantile, this idea right now, but people would somehow accrue these tokens. And once they get these tokens, the point of them is to give them to your favorite artists. And, you could build up stats by, I gave this artist so many tokens, or this artist had. So the idea is to make a loop of this game design type thing where, you vote on movies and maybe you earn some tokens that way. Then you give tokens to artists, and those artists get those tokens, and they're like inspired to make more movies, and therefore they put new cool movies in that you can vote on to get more tokens to get. It's a loop, and that's what we want to do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's kind of the idea we're kind of spitballing right now. I mean, it's not going to come around anytime soon because our plates are pretty full, but yeah, that's the kind of things we're always talking about. We're always talking about these types of things. And
to be clear, the token would be something you earned by gaining experience on Newgrounds and by voting, right?
We're not exactly sure how you would, but basically it would be some sort of thing you earn by participating in the site in general. We'd probably be able to give them to you for multiple ways.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, as opposed to them only being available by buying them.
No. It wouldn't be a pay to play type thing. No. I mean, we may give supporters some extra ones to throw around just to say thank you for supporting us, but
right.
I would never make that you have to give us money to get it type thing.
Because it sounds a little bit like bits on Twitch, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and that's the whole idea is you get a little loop going. But yeah, we don't want to make people have to pay money to do any of that stuff. We want it to be all natural. And that's the thing with Newgrounds. Like, we kind of stick with the whole punk rock vibe even today. I mean, we're not the edgy punk rock of the old days, but, it's very independent. Everybody that comes in isn't necessarily in a position to be making money doing what they're doing, but it's a good place to hone your craft, build a fan base, and then go off and make money someday,
Absolutely. That's exciting.
Yeah. There's always something exciting going on. It's just a matter of when it happens.
It's always something exciting to talk about implementing. All you got to do is just go make it.
Oh, I hear that so much. You could just do this. You could just do that. You have no idea. We're working with it's going on 1999. It's fucking 20-year-old code base now, man. Mm-hmm. It's not that easy.
You guys have 20-year-old code and 20-year-long users who have been used to something being done a certain way for that amount of time. Yep. And God forbid anything change. That's
always the funny thing, too, is the old guys, I mean, we got to love them because they've been around forever and they've stuck with us this whole time. And, we don't want to make drastic changes because we appreciate that they've been around this long. But on the other hand, we can't let them keep Newgrounds what it was, 10 years ago. We've got to evolve. We just have to. I mean, if we don't evolve, we die. It's just the way it is. So while we appreciate everybody that wants us to stay the way we are and never change, we appreciate the fact that we have an ever-growing audience as well. And,
right.
It is what it is.
I mean, I can understand the fear so well of that you're working on Newgrounds to be accessible to more people, but at the same time, the reason Newgrounds has been successful recently is because of the people that have been sticking with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we appreciate your support that you've given us all these years, and we don't want to say, but, take it or leave it. It's come with us. That's what I like to tell people. Come with us. Give us a chance. Have a little faith. You've been here this long. We really haven't let you down, have we? Come on, come with us.
Really, though.
And, unlike an actual government, if we implement something that's a Newgrounds law and it doesn't work so good, we will fix it. It's not like every system we've ever launched came out, perfect. We may not roll it back to what it was, but we will fix it and, meet you in the middle somewhere. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Have some faith and come with us. And, if there's problems, help us find them. We'll make sure it's good.
I'm so excited to hear what you guys are planning, even short term and long term. Just a general idea of getting Newgrounds streamlined in a way that takes the best part of what it is now and then putting it out there so that people on the outside can understand it too.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
That's definitely the goal. And, we always want to have a little bit of Newgrounds that maybe outsiders don't grab right away. And that's kind of the fun part of Newgrounds. Anybody can come in, anybody can do whatever. But we want to have these layers that, you got to be a part of it to get it, So we're always going to have some of that. And I think that's what a lot of the old timers like. And we'll always have some of that.
Yeah. Random idea. I know you love these.
I love them. Bring it on.
Have you guys ever been pressured in any way to make like a content only page where you don't see the reviews or the voting, or you just see like the content itself?
I've actually been one of the people creating the pressure to maybe make some secondary websites where we showcase curated content more than anything. I think not only would it be a nice front where people could discover things in a more condensed way, and for me as a developer, I could build something that really does fit all the modern conventions and not be limited. We could actually put some advertising on it that's newer, but not as ugly, because we wouldn't have all the adult content on those sites, things like that. But it would be an avenue to get people from those to Newgrounds to learn how the community side works and how to submit and be part of it. And I'm really aching with if you look at Newgrounds, we've really grown as far as the art portal's huge. I would argue that our audio community has gotten so much better, and we're seeing a lot more frequent audio coming in, and our animators are like really good now. But our game side has actually kind of dwindled,
right?
And that was our bread and butter back in the day. And I'm a game guy. You look at my user profile, and I came in as a game guy. I was making Flash games all these years, and I'm still a game guy at heart. So I want to make an arcade. I want that arcade experience where you submit games on Newgrounds, you use our high score API, and you do it all in modern HTML5 so that everybody can play it, especially on their mobile devices. That'd be cool. But I want to make like a site that's, a spin-off of Newgrounds that plays our games, and it's all curated. And I want it to feel like an arcade where you go on and you get a high score in a quick little game, and I beat your high score because I'm better than you, and then you try and beat mine, that type of experience. Like that old school 80s arcade experience.
That is tremendous.
And the cool thing about doing a site like that is it's another one of these debates we've had. People talk about, should we make a Newgrounds app? Shouldn't we? I'm on the we shouldn't make an app camp, because app stores can censor you. That's one of the big things that we had with ads and stuff. We don't want Newgrounds to ever be censored. We don't want people saying you can't have this content. Yeah, we could make an app and we could curate everything that goes into it. And that kind of goes hand in hand with those curated sites I was talking about. We could make apps for those. I could make a Newgrounds audio app that's got, hand curated audio. I can make a Newgrounds movie app that's got hand curated movies. But an app for all of Newgrounds is it's not something I think we should do. You can save the website to your desktop on your desktop, whatever the hell they call it on your phone. You can make the shortcut and launch it like an app. So there's no reason to have an app and risk having censorship or things pulled out. So with this arcade idea, it's kind of the same thing. We could make it as a progressive app, like a progressive web app where you can install it on your phone, but it's not in an app store. And therefore, people can make, edgy games. They can make experimental games. They can make things that, Google Play might say, no, thank you. And Apple would be like, oh, hell no, But yeah. Newgrounds would be like, yeah, pop it on here and people can play it and you can build an audience. So, yeah, I'm definitely one of those people saying that maybe we should have, some other avenues. I think we should be making, a little bit more Newgrounds products out there on the web than just the core site. The core site is amazing. But, like we've discussed so many times between the ads and the low supporter number. Well, I don't want to say low supporter numbers. We got pretty good numbers, but we can't do a whole lot more with it.
You're talking like not growing as much as you'd like.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not going to be, I don't ever see the Newgrounds website being a big revenue machine. I don't think it should. I really don't, because once it becomes a big revenue churning machine, it turns into YouTube. It really does.
We've watched every other place turn into a money machine.
Yeah, exactly. And people's motivations change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not just for us. I don't think that the best users grow in a greed-minded environment. So on Newgrounds, they grow because it's the users making them grow. You get the feedback, you get that thrill of growing, and then when they do grow, they do go off into the industry and they do make a lot of money. So I think we could do stuff like that and have all these other avenues that maybe they can make a little money, and maybe that money can go towards whoever we're featuring in our curated work. So, maybe Newgrounds itself may not be the place where you go to get rich being an artist or a web-based game designer, things like that.
Yeah.
But, these other sites where if you're working on Newgrounds and you're making consistently good stuff, we'll put it on there, and then, maybe we'll be able to have something that generates a little revenue, and you guys can get a share of that.
I feel like I say this every podcast that I do, and it's going to keep happening, but Patreon exists as a revenue share for artists.
Yeah.
And if Newgrounds isn't going to go the way of making a revenue for itself, which I agree with what you're saying, I don't quite think that's the place for it. Newgrounds can, give an artist a fan base that they can then direct towards a revenue site like Patreon or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And sites like Patreon do it so well already. Like, a lot of people have asked us why we don't do a Patreon type thing, and there's companies that do it so well already. It's hard to say we should put that manpower into A, building it, B, maintaining it, and C, dealing with the goddamn international taxes. You have no idea when frickin' January rolls around, it's a tax nightmare every year.
I don't want to know. My own taxes were a nightmare. I don't want to talk about a website's taxes.
We have to figure out the treaties for every country and what their tax rate is, and it's an ever-evolving thing. It's a huge time sink. So it's one of the reasons we don't do a lot of stuff like that. We had the revenue share system that we have, and frankly, it's based on sharing our ad revenue, which I've mentioned is really low. So nobody's really making any money on that. And we're talking about probably scrapping that in the near future and switching to something else. We do still want to trickle out some of our revenue into the community when we do get it. And one of the things we talked about is maybe switching to like a pool-based system where, whatever money we have to trickle out, we just put it in a pool, and then we use whatever stats we have on the server and pick, a list of who should get that,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, because right now the ads are the only place that this revenue share stuff happens. The only place where it's any successful at all is in the one that goes right in the Flash games.
Mm-hmm.
And, Flash is going to be dead in a couple of years. So that's kind of going to dry up and things like that. So we're always talking about ways to, maybe get some money out to our users. But it's really hard to make Newgrounds focus on that type of thing just because all the taxes and spending all the time on dealing with money. That's not what we want to do. We want to make the community and build people up, and that's where our heads are at. So, which
is a perfectly healthy thing. If the website empowers artists, then the artists will have the power to get the revenue, no matter how they want to do it. They'll be able to do it because they'll have a fan base from Newgrounds.
Right, exactly. And it's not like we're blocking your links to Patreon anywhere, but by all means, plaster your stuff with that. We're all for it.
If anything, the more Patreon succeeds, the more artists are able to get money from their work and the more art they make. And on Newgrounds it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And we love that people get successful on there because that's their success. It's not the platform success. Patreon isn't showing their work. Patreon's just, the middleman handling all their stuff. We have talked about maybe looking at integrating some of their APIs. So if you make something, maybe you can give your backers a little extra here and there. So we're looking at stuff like that too.
That would be cool. The APIs go into the accessibility thing too that we've been talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
The more you can make the website work with the other websites that artists already know, the more they can sort of learn how to integrate Newgrounds into their workflow.
Especially ones that look like they're going to stick around. We've integrated with websites in the past, and then they failed, and then we had like these dead pages and stuff. But I don't think sites like Patreon are necessarily going to go anywhere. Right.
It's interesting you mentioned the idea of an app, because I find myself so much on both sides of the app idea, because I'm with you. Like, I know how the App Store works, and if you have any adult content on it, then the App Store is really going to have a hard time with it.
Oh, yeah. Just having games, they don't even have to be adult. Just having games could break terms of contract, because you become a secondary front for games that get past their systems, and they can kick you out for even that.
But the other side of it is I know that I sometimes wish Newgrounds had an app just so I could check my PMs or something without going to the 2 or 3 step process of logging in on the browser on the phone.
Yeah.
I know. I feel both ways. I feel the way that it could be made, that it would be helpful.
Well, the good news is progressive web apps are coming, and they're already supported on Android. I believe there's some basic support on Apple coming up. The cool thing with a progressive web app is it's basically just a web page that gets cached on your phone, and you should be able to keep alive things like notifications and things like that. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Ooh.
And so Newgrounds will probably go that route.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I'll have to look more into that now.
Yeah, they're very promising, and we've already talked about maybe testing it. Like if one of us makes another game for Pixel Day or Pico Day or whatever, making that into a progressive web app just as a test to see how it works. So that may happen sooner than later, and eventually we'll see what it takes to get the whole site doing that. But that's where I think the future is going to be, because you can basically go to a web, and you've probably seen it when you go to a website on your phone. It'll say, "Do you want to install this on your screen or whatever?" And that's what that is. It's not taking you to an app store. It's making a shortcut to their progressive web app.
Cool. Well, dude, you've said a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to get me to shut up, man. It is.
A big, giant thank you to PsychoGoldfish for that interview, and thank you to you for listening. If you like this show, a big thing you can do to support us is go on Twitter and tweet about us using the hashtag Grounds Patrol. Hashtag Grounds Patrol. Now, I don't really do anything professionally speaking to market this podcast or get it out there. I don't pay for advertising. So I'm relying on word of mouth from you guys, and if you were able to tweet about us, that would be really amazing. Helps this podcast grow and grow and grow. All right? You can also join our Discord at bit.ly/Grounds Patrol. That is also growing very quickly. There's a lot of fun discussion going on it, including about the thread, about other stuff. As you listen to new episodes, you'll be able to talk about them with other people who have also heard them. There's a trivia game. I got that Me6 bot going on in there. It's really fun. Just go join. Again, bit.ly/Grounds Patrol. You can follow us on Newgrounds on Twitter at Grounds Patrol. You can follow me on Newgrounds on Twitter at WillKMR. And finally, big thank you to Waterflame for the use of his song Below. It is our theme song. Folks, that is all the time we have for this episode. Tune back in 2 weeks for more amazing Newgrounds content. Until then, stay creative.